by scratching the surface, you get a terrible shock. It's such a, well, it's a heinous crime. People are so shocked by what.
Have you ever wondered what a dying monarch's final letter might reveal about the people they loved most? Well, what we're about to tell you isn't just speculation. It's a real moment that shook the British royal family to its core, and the fallout changed everything about how the monarchy works behind closed doors. If you want to know what Elizabeth secretly decided about Catherine and Camilla that nobody saw coming, you need to watch this entire video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're dropping exclusive details about this family drama that the official palace statements completely glossed over. Picture this. The king is sitting in a private room at one of the royal estates. Someone hands him a sealed envelope. This wasn't just any letter. This was the final message from his mother, opened only after her passing. Inside those pages was a decision that would eventually cause real tension between two of the most powerful women in the monarchy. And when Charles started reading those words aloud, everyone in that room understood that things between these women were never going to be the same. What makes this story so fascinating isn't just what Elizabeth decided, it's how she decided it. She didn't just write something quickly in her final days. This was a deliberate choice she'd thought about, changed her mind about, and then locked into those sealed documents. The fact that she amended the letter multiple times tells you this wasn't some passing thought. This was calculated. This was intentional. This was Elizabeth leaving behind specific instructions about who would carry her private world forward. Let's back up for a second, though, because understanding why this letter mattered means understanding the two women at the center of this conflict. On one side, you had Camilla. She'd spent decades fighting against public opinion, dealing with suspicion from the royal family itself, and waiting, just waiting for the day she'd finally belong. The whole world watched her struggle with acceptance, and then finally, after all that time, she became queen beside Charles. She'd earned it, she'd survived it, and according to her own thinking, she'd proven herself. On the other side, there was Catherine. She'd entered the royal world differently. She hadn't had decades of public drama. She'd come in quietly, learned the rules, raised 3 incredible children, and positioned herself as someone integral to the monarchy's future. 2 completely different paths to almost the same place. The tension between these women didn't come out of nowhere. It came from something that happened months before Elizabeth died. The family was gathered at Windsor, one of those places where royal duty meets actual family life. After dinner, someone brought up the children, specifically Charlotte. And here's where it gets interesting. Elizabeth had been thinking about something that worried her. Charlotte would grow up knowing she had a brother who'd inherit the throne. The question was, would she grow up understanding that she still mattered? That she wasn't less than just because George would have a heavier crown to carry? Camilla spoke first, and she wasn't wrong, exactly. She argued that Charlotte needed to learn early what reality actually was. In the monarchy, rank matters, power flows in specific directions. Learning to accept that hierarchy, to understand where she stood without fighting it, that was practical wisdom. Camilla wasn't being cruel. She was being realistic based on everything she'd experienced. But Catherine had a different view. She said something that clearly stuck with Elizabeth. Catherine said that teaching a child discipline and duty didn't require teaching her that she was worth less. Charlotte could understand the system, could respect her brother's future role, without believing she needed to disappear into the background to make it work. Elizabeth listened to both of them make their arguments, and then she asked Catherine one question that apparently changed everything. What would Catherine tell Charlotte if she ever felt invisible? Catherine answered without hesitation. Service works best when it comes from confidence, not from erasing yourself. She said children needed to know their responsibilities without losing their sense of who they actually were. That night, something shifted in Elizabeth's mind. Not that she suddenly decided Camilla was wrong, but she started thinking about something bigger. She started thinking about what values she wanted to survive her reign, what pieces of her own understanding of duty and family needed to be carried forward. And more importantly, who should be the person teaching those values to George, Charlotte, and Louis? Here's what happened next that shocked everyone. Elizabeth wrote instructions, but these weren't about official duties or constitutional stuff. These were personal. She wanted someone to take her handwritten notes, her private letters, her personal photographs, all the intimate pieces of her life, and eventually share them with her grandchildren. She wanted someone to explain what service actually meant according to how she understood it. She wanted someone to make sure the next generation didn't just inherit a crown, but inherited a philosophy about what wearing that crown should mean. Then Charles is sitting there in that sealed meeting, and he's reading these instructions aloud, and it becomes impossible to pretend what's written doesn't matter. Elizabeth had entrusted Catherine with this role, not anyone else, not the person standing beside the king, but Catherine. When Charles read that out loud, you could literally watch Camilla's expression change. This wasn't abstract. This was real. This was personal. This was Elizabeth essentially saying, "I trust you with my legacy." And she was saying it to Catherine, not to the woman who'd finally made it to being queen. Camilla asked Charles one brutal question. Why didn't Elizabeth ever tell her? Why did she have to find out this way? And Charles had no good answer. Neither did anyone else in the room. What makes the situation even more complicated is that Elizabeth wasn't just making a sentimental gesture. She literally assigned specific items. Catherine would get the handwritten Christmas notes. She'd get certain family photographs. She'd get responsibility for eventually explaining Elizabeth's view of service directly to each of the kids when they were old enough to understand. This wasn't temporary. This was a responsibility designed to last for years. This was Elizabeth reaching past the present and into the future, and she was asking Catherine to be her voice there. The cruelest thing about this, though, and we really need to emphasize this, isn't that Catherine got something. It's what the decision implied about trust. Both women had fought to earn their place in this family, but Elizabeth was saying that Catherine was the one she trusted with what mattered most to her personally. And that wound, that hurt, that was something Camilla couldn't just shake off. Ugh, Catherine felt it too. She told William that accepting these responsibilities felt almost like she was stealing something from Camilla, even though she'd never asked for any of it. Even though it was Elizabeth's choice alone, accepting it felt like betrayal. But William pointed out something his wife couldn't escape. Rejecting Elizabeth's decision wouldn't protect Camilla. It would just reject the late queen's judgment, and that would be its own kind of wrong. So now we have Charles in this impossible position. As a husband, he sees his wife hurting. As a son, he understands his mother's instructions are deliberate and deserve respect. As king, he has to figure out what loyalty actually means when two people you love are on opposite sides of a decision. Charles eventually asks William to stay after everyone leaves. Alone, the king admits what's eating him. If he honors Elizabeth's letter exactly as written, Camilla might see it as him choosing Catherine's new role over her pain. William's response is measured but firm. Changing Elizabeth's instructions creates a different injustice. Catherine never asked to be chosen. Making her reject Elizabeth's trust would force her to carry blame for something she never decided. You can't protect one person by quietly hurting another. So Charles makes the hardest decision. He sits down with Camilla, no advisors, no staff translating emotion into official language, just the two of them. He tells her he can't erase his mother's words just because they hurt, but he wants her to know he understands why the pain is real. He gets it. Camilla doesn't argue. She just says she's not asking him to destroy the letter or pretend it doesn't exist. She's asking him to understand what it feels like to realize that acceptance you thought you'd finally earned came with boundaries you never knew were there. And that's when Charles signs the authorization. Elizabeth's wish becomes action. The boxes start moving. The photographs change hands. Catherine receives the first collection of Elizabeth's private papers. Inside are handwritten notes, family documents, and direct instructions about traditions Elizabeth wanted preserved. Catherine opens one folder and finds a letter addressed specifically to Charlotte. Just reading that note makes her understand this isn't honor. This is responsibility. This is grief. This is weight. Camilla learns about it differently. An advisor tells her that a private collection she expected to review will now go first to Catherine. The queen consort says nothing. She dismisses the staff and asks to be left alone. She reads the briefing, folds it once, and puts it away. The gesture is small. The hurt is enormous. She's not losing rank, but she's watching influence move somewhere she never expected. But then Catherine finds something crucial. Among Elizabeth's papers is a memorandum explicitly stating that Elizabeth didn't want this role turned into a new title. The late queen had worried about competition between royal women. she deliberately built Catherine's responsibility around influence rather than rank. This wasn't designed to humiliate Camilla, but Elizabeth had absolutely anticipated the jealousy and protected her decision from becoming public warfare. Catherine realizes she can't stay silent anymore. Against advice to let emotions settle, she asks for a private meeting with Camilla. Just the two of them. No Charles translating, no William supporting, no staff in the room explaining protocol. Just two women sitting across from each other, finally telling the truth. Catherine goes first. She tells Camilla she will carry Elizabeth's wish, but she won't use that trust as a weapon. She understands why the letter hurt. She can't apologize for being chosen without suggesting Elizabeth was wrong to choose her. That's not realistic, and Camilla knows it. Then Camilla says something she'd been holding back the entire time. Becoming queen didn't erase her need for acceptance. After everything she'd survived, everything she'd endured to get there, part of her still wanted complete proof that Elizabeth had finally, fully accepted her. This letter had exposed a boundary she never knew was still there, and that's what broke her. Catherine does something powerful. She opens Elizabeth's note for Charlotte and reads a specific passage. Elizabeth had written that royal women shouldn't repeat old patterns of rivalry just because history taught them to compete. Service didn't require women to diminish each other. It was a message meant for both of them, not just for the next generation. Camilla makes a decision that surprises Catherine. She tells her to keep every responsibility Elizabeth assigned, not to share it, not to split it, keep it all. And she's not doing this because she suddenly feels fine about everything. She's doing it because rewriting a dead queen's final wishes to protect her own pride would be wrong. She understands that now. But here's the thing nobody expected. When the public finds out about Elizabeth's letter, it becomes national news. Suddenly, Catherine is being discussed not as William's wife or a future queen, but as the woman Elizabeth personally trusted with her deepest legacy. For Camilla, this could have been absolutely devastating, completely public humiliation. But something unexpected happens. At a joint public engagement, Camilla pauses before entering an event. She waits for Catherine to reach her. Catherine comes alongside. They don't speak. Catherine just briefly touches Camilla's arm. That's it, 30 seconds. No words. But broadcasters replay it all night. The public was waiting for a royal war, and instead, these two women rejected that story completely. Because in the end, Elizabeth's letter wasn't really about creating a winner and a loser. It was about understanding different responsibilities across different generations. Charles carries the crown in the present. Camilla stands beside him today. William will inherit the responsibility tomorrow. But Catherine has something quieter, but just as crucial. She carries the values into the children's lives, the generation that will live with this crown long after everyone involved in this painful moment is gone. Camilla finally understands something crucial. Elizabeth's confidence in Catherine doesn't erase her own place beside Charles. They're not competing versions of trust. They're two different kinds of love. Her hurt was real because she wanted complete acceptance. But the letter never said she didn't belong. It just gave Catherine a different responsibility. Perhaps a fourth Charles eventually tells both women what he believes his mother intended. Elizabeth was looking beyond just one reign. She trusted Camilla to support the man who became king. She trusted Catherine to help shape the family that would follow him. Those aren't rival roles. They're two parts of the same continuity. Pincias and Buldif. There's a final choice that shows real grace. She returns a personal photograph from Elizabeth's collection to Camilla. It shows Elizabeth and Charles laughing together during a family moment. Catherine tells her it belongs with someone who understands what that relationship meant. Camilla looks at that photograph and places it beside the letter that once shattered her confidence. Catherine stays for tea. No announcement follows. None is needed. Elizabeth's final wish had divided everyone at first, but its true meaning becomes unmistakable. Both women belong. They just belong in different ways. If you made it this far, you clearly care about these kinds of real stories from inside powerful families. Hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next deep dive into stories nobody else is telling. Drop a comment below telling us which woman's perspective you understood better. And thanks for watching all the way to the end. We'll see you in the next one.